recording this lesson. We're starting from scratch. And, well, let's dive right in, everybody. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be having some practice problems on how to multiply. Now, we did adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers already. So now we're going to be focusing on multiplying, how to multiply positive and negative integers. I'm saying integers specifically for a reason, okay? Because I'm not focusing on like decimals and fractions. That's a whole other thing. Just positive and negative integers. Think of like whole numbers and the opposites of whole numbers. So here's one thing that you could write down, and it's actually really good if you do take a screenshot, if anything, because these are the rules for multiplying positive and negative integers rules. Everyone has to go through this, you guys. Here we go. First rule. This is kind of obvious. A positive times a positive equals a positive number. Okay? So what that means is positive 2 times positive 2 equals positive 4. Great. Next rule. Here's where it gets interesting. Now, these rules are different from adding and subtracting positive and negatives, okay? Really important. This is all new material. A negative times a negative number or integer equals a negative answer, okay? And I'm going to write the example next to it. Negative 2 times negative 2 equals, oops, oh my gosh, I made a mistake already. Forgive me. A negative times a negative equals a positive. How can I have made that mistake? Mr. C, focus. A negative times a negative number equals a positive number. Okay? So negative 2 times negative 2 equals positive 4. I hope I didn't confuse you guys too much there. Now here's where the answer is going to be negative. Ready? It's either when a positive integer times a negative integer is multiplied that it equals a negative answer, and also the reverse. When you start with a negative and you multiply that by a positive, it equals a negative. Okay, so an example of number 3 would be, and I'm going to change the numbers, let's say positive 6 or just 6 times negative 2. Well, that's going to give you a negative 12 because you know 6 times 2 is 12. Yeah. Orly, go for it. What's your comment? It's exactly like that. So Orly was talking when we were adding, Orly, correct me if I'm wrong, when we were adding and subtracting integers, that sometimes there would be 2 signs in the middle. Let's see, 3. That these 2 signs, if they were different, they would turn into a negative, right? Or a minus. Is that what you mean, Orly? Yeah. Oh, you can't see my screen? If you can't see my screen, you can try getting out and coming back in. But that's exactly correct, everybody. And I taught you this part in anticipation for what we're doing today. Good thinking. Excellent. Okay, so you already kind of know this stuff, is the good news there. All right, and back to number 4 here. If you have a negative number, and I'm just going to end it with that, negative times a positive 2. What I mean by end it is I'm going to move on. So a negative times a positive, in this case there's no sign here, so you know it's a positive 2, is going to give us a negative answer, which is 8 times 2 is 16. Okay? So far, so good. If you're good, write a Y in the comments, and the moderators will let me know so I can move forward with problems. Oh, and moderators, one more thing. Please let me know, like, what was that, Kieran? Awesome, perfect. So moderators at 9:12, let me know when it's 9:12. That's 3 minutes before class ends, as a heads up, okay? Okay, let's get to it. So, remember when you had a negative times a negative is a positive? Well, a negative divided by a negative is also a positive. The rules are the same. So that's like easy, right? Hold on, let me give you another problem. Here we go. Problem number 1. I'm actually going to give you a few problems. So solve them as you go. If you only get through one, that's fine. What happens when you multiply positive times a negative? What answer would that give you? That's problem number 1. And I'm going to give you some new problems. Try these. Again, don't post the answers. I'm going to let you post them after, like in a couple of minutes. See if you can do these. It should take you like a minute or so to do these, roughly. But you're not being rushed here. And make sure you double check these problems as well. Okay. Does anyone, so I think that's a pretty good time. I wonder if somebody can post the answer for number 1. And moderators, just let me know what you get. Okay. So Rowan, that's okay. Just give me like the general. So you're right, negative. A positive times a negative is a negative. Okay? And the negative times a negative is a positive. And the positive times a positive is a positive, etc. Okay, great. What's negative 2 times negative 5? 10. You can give me 10. You can give me positive 10. Those are both potentially good answers, but those are the only answers. How about number 3? Negative 9. The only possible answer here is negative 9. You cannot put positive. That's not the answer. For this one, it was different, but for this one, it's negative 9. That's the only way of writing it. Now remember, when you see something in parentheses, that doesn't change anything. I was trying to see if I can trick you a little bit. That still says 3 times negative 3 in parentheses. Okay, the parentheses fall off and there's still a negative 3 there. And then the same thing applies for number 4. So what's that going to give you for number 4? What was that, Kieran? What are they saying? Negative 20 is right. It's the Yeah, so negative 20 is the only answer for number 4. Jules, what's your question? Make sure you keep it nice and simple, okay? What is it? few screens. Just to make sure that you get. Okay. Well, Jules, can you do me a favor? And so that's good that that happens because it asks you to actually think about what's happening instead of just like giving you the same type of problems. Why don't you give me one problem that you're seeing on Khan Academy so I can write it here? Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, that's fine. I'll give you permission for that. All right, and let's see here. So these are basically the problems that you all are going to be getting. I'm trying to think if there's something else that I can be providing you. Oh yeah, of course. When you have a negative, when you have any integer, everybody, and you multiply it times 0, what do you think that's always going to give you? You can go ahead and comment. It's always going to give you 0. Okay? So, and this isn't a real problem. This is just me explaining. Anything times 0 is going to give you 0. 0 times 0 is going to give you 0. 5 times 0 is going to give you 0. Okay? So that's actually really important to think about. Okay? No, just tell me what it is. Don't worry about it. Hmm. Um, I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding that problem. I wonder what the best way of doing it is. Maybe you can maybe you can go ahead and at the end, maybe you can present your screen. I'm going to talk about absolute value and then present your screen, Jules. Okay? But I'll tell you when. Don't do it yet. Okay, so we'll go, yeah. Mm-hmm. The video or the exercise? Oh. Yeah. So what you all are saying is that you do have decimals that are being multiplied in your Khan Academy assignment, right? Okay. Well, I would say that's probably fine because there's not that many Khan Academy problems. So if you do have decimals that are being multiplied, just treat them like normal numbers. So let's say you have negative 2.5 times negative 6 or something like that. Just do 2.5 times 6. 12, 13, 14, 15. That's going to give you 15.0 or just 15. And the negative times a negative is a positive. Okay. So I don't think it's a big deal. It's fine because you guys already know how to multiply decimals. So it's all right. All right. Before Jules gets to give us his problem, and before any more time passes, I want to go ahead and review absolute value with you really quick. Look at it. So absolute value, everybody, is the distance away from 0. That's actually so important that I'm going to write it down to reinforce it. Absolute value is the distance away from 0. Away from 0. That's all it is. If you know that, you're doing really good. So let's say this is 0 and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. What is the absolute value of, I'm gonna give you a problem here. You're gonna use this number line as a reference. So for the next problem, let's say problem number 6. What is the absolute value of negative 2? These lines, by the way, and just think about it, just solve it. Don't comment this, okay? These vertical lines that I'm doing here, that means, all this problem means is, what is the absolute value of negative 2? Or absolute value of negative 2, okay? So tell me what you think it is by saying how far negative 2 is from 0. And its absolute value is always positive. It's always positive. Okay, so what is it? Go ahead and let me know in the comments. And I'm going to... Excellent. The absolute value of negative 2, or the distance that negative 2 is from 0, here's negative 2, right? It's from 0, it's 1, 2 spaces, and it's going to be 2, or positive 2. You can say positive 2 or 2. Now you guys remember, the reason that absolute value is always positive is because distance is positive. Okay? If somebody tells you, I walked negative 2 feet yesterday, or negative 2 miles, it's like, what? What do you mean by that? Okay, so distance is positive. So absolute value is positive. What's the absolute value of 5? Okay, and you can post it because it's so easy. Like, just go ahead and post your value. Yeah, it's just 5. You can write 5 or you can write positive 5. It's always positive. I love absolute value when I learned it the first time, because I was like, this is the easiest thing I've ever seen. What's the absolute value? Yeah, what's the absolute value of 0? So that, another way of saying it is, how far is 0 from 0? And 0. It's 0 steps away from 0. Okay? So that's absolute value, and that's what you're going to be tested on. Absolute value is a little bit, it's not really advanced, but it's something that's a little bit advanced for 5th grade. Sometimes 5th graders don't see it. Consider yourself lucky. Jules, we have a few minutes left. Do you want to go ahead and present your screen so I can see what you're doing? Okay. On recording here. Let me go back. So negative x, can everybody see my screen, by the way? Great. So this is the next example. Negative x divided by negative y is what's happening here. It looks like a fraction, but that's a division problem. It's negative x divided by negative y. Here's why this problem is super easy, okay? Because the same rules for multiply are the rules for divide. Done. So what happens when you divide a negative by a negative? What is the sign of your answer? What do you guys think is the sign of your answer? You can post it. It's okay. Yeah. So it's positive. A negative divided by a negative is positive. So think of it like this, you all. Let's say another example. What about, let's use different letters, okay? A divided by negative z. What is going to be the sign of that problem? Now think about it. Yeah. Oh, perfect. Thanks, Kieran. Yeah, and you guys are right. It's actually a negative. All right, so does that make sense? It doesn't matter if A was negative and the bottom one was positive. It's still going to be negative. Okay, and this is kind of obvious. I'm going to say it anyway. Okay, what happens if you have A divided by B, which, by the way, you can write A divided by B, of course. Okay, hold on. This is going to be positive, by the way. Okay. All right, Jules, let's end with another strange one. Let's do it. These are actually good for us.